Welcome back, everybody. Today, we're going to a really remote place.
Mm.
It was considered the edge of the world back in the day.
Oh, wow.
Vardø, Norway,
Okay.
a tiny fishing village in the Arctic Circle.
Wow.
But it has a really dark secret.
Oh.
The Vardø witch trials.
Oh, okay.
Between the 16th and 18th centuries,
Hmm.
fear of witchcraft swept across Europe.
Right.
But in Vardø,
Yeah.
this fear turned into a frenzy,
Uh-huh.
resulted in just a staggering number of trials and executions.
Really?
Yeah, and get this,
Okay.
despite having less than 1%
Wow.
of Norway's population,
Okay.
this region
Yeah.
saw 31% of the nation's witch executions.
Wow. That's crazy, right?
That's a huge number.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
So Vardø's isolation,
Mm-hmm.
I think that played a significant role in this.
Yeah, for sure.
It was a place where rumors and superstitions
Yeah.
could easily take root,
Yeah.
and the harsh realities of
Mm.
life at sea fueled this deep-seated fear of the unknown.
Definitely. Yeah, it's like the perfect breeding ground for just paranoia and suspicion.
It is, yeah.
So to understand the intensity of the Vardø witch trials,
Okay.
we need to go back to the 17th century,
Mm-hmm.
a time when belief in the supernatural
Right.
was really widespread.
Yeah.
And events like storms
Mm-hmm.
were often attributed to witchcraft.
Totally.
So,
Yeah, and a particularly devastating storm on Christmas Eve of 1617,
Oh, wow.
that became a catalyst for the witch hunt.
Oh,
Where's Vardø?
okay.
This storm tragically claimed the lives of 40 fishermen,
Oh, my God.
leaving the community desperate for answers.
Yeah.
Grief combined with existing superstitions
Yeah.
created a climate where accusations of witchcraft could easily flourish.
Oh, yeah, definitely. So
Yeah.
it's like a small, isolated community
Mm.
reeling from this devastating loss.
Yeah,
They're looking for someone to blame.
right.
Something to blame.
Exactly.
And in this atmosphere of fear and uncertainty,
Yeah.
the finger of suspicion falls on those perceived as different
Yeah.
outsiders.
That's precisely what happened.
Mhm.
The Sami people,
Yeah.
an indigenous group
Great.
with their own distinct culture and spiritual practices,
Mm-hmm.
they became early targets.
Wow.
Their traditions,
Often.
often misunderstood
Right.
by the dominant Norwegian society,
Uh-huh.
were misconstrued as evidence of sorcery.
It's a stark reminder of how fear and ignorance can just lead to prejudice and persecution.
It is.
And sadly,
Yeah.
the Sami weren't the only ones caught in the crosshairs of this witch hunt.
No, they weren't.
Okay.
The trials soon expanded
Hmm.
to include Norwegian women,
Oh, okay.
often those who held positions of influence or knowledge within the community,
Yeah.
healers,
Yeah.
midwives,
Okay.
or women who simply dared to challenge societal norms.
Speaking of societal norms,
Yeah.
one of the most chilling aspects of the Vardø witch trials
Yeah.
was the role of testimony
Okay.
and this so-called evidence
Right.
used to convict the accused.
You're right.
Yeah.
The trials relied heavily on eyewitness accounts,
Oh, wow.
often coerced or influenced by fear and superstition.
Right.
One particularly striking example
Okay.
is the testimony of Elsa's daughter,
Oh, wow.
who claimed that witches had cursed the fishing nets,
Okay.
causing the fateful Christmas Eve storm.
Jeez.
She described witches tying knots
Oh, my gosh.
and spitting on them, unleashing their evil power
Right.
as the knots were untied.
It's hard to imagine the terror these people must have felt.
It is.
Accused based on such flimsy and often fantastical claims.
Yeah,
And to make matters worse,
right.
there was the water test,
Uh-huh.
a horrifying ordeal based on the belief that water would reject evil,
Right.
causing witches to float.
Exactly.
Wow.
This test, devoid of any scientific basis,
Right.
highlights the deeply flawed logic
Yeah.
that permeated these trials.
It's crazy.
Sadly, Elsa's daughter, like many others,
Yeah.
floated during this test, sealing her fate.
That's just awful.
Yeah,
It's a chilling reminder of how belief masquerading as evidence
it is.
can have such devastating consequences.
Yeah.
And the 1621 trials
Mm-hmm.
saw a wave of accusations and executions
Yeah.
fueled by such flawed reasoning.
Yeah.
But tragically,
Yeah.
this wasn't the end of the witch hunt in Vardø.
You're right, in the 1660s.
Oh.
Another wave of accusations
Right.
swept through the community,
Right.
this time ensnaring over 30 people.
Oh, well.
including young girls.
Oh, my gosh.
The testimonies from this period are particularly disturbing,
Yeah, that kind of...
with children as young as 12
Wow.
forced to recount tales of devil worship and unholy
It's
rituals.
heartbreaking to imagine the pressure and fear these children must have faced.
It is.
Coerced into giving testimonies
Right.
that would ultimately lead to the conviction of innocent people.
Yeah. And one recurring motif in these testimonies. Okay.
Was this image of tainted milk
Right.
and a black dog devil.
Oh, wow.
These recurring themes raise serious questions about the influence of suggestion and coercion on these young minds.
For sure.
Were they truly recounting events they had witnessed?
Yeah.
Or were they simply repeating stories they had been told?
Yeah.
Perhaps even pressured to fabricate?
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
a question that continues to haunt us.
It does.
As we delve deeper into the darkness of the Vardø witch trials, and as we explore the events of the 1660s,
Yeah.
we encounter the looming presence of Vardøhus fortress,
Right.
a stark reminder of the brutality inflicted upon those accused of witchcraft.
Within the fortress, there was a place known as the Witch's Hole.
Oh, wow.
This dank and cramped cell became a site of unimaginable suffering,
Oh, God.
where torture was used to extract confessions from
Yeah.
the accused.
The very existence of such a place speaks volumes about the mindset of the time.
It does.
And mindset consumed by fear.
And a belief in the absolute necessity of rooting out witchcraft,
Right.
no matter the cost.
And adding another layer of complexity to this already grim picture is the presence of two political prisoners,
Okay.
Ambrosius and Anfrider
Wow. Okay, so who are these people?
Well, these individuals, imprisoned for reasons unrelated to witchcraft, had a disturbing influence on the trials.
Okay, I'm curious about this.
Yeah.
What exactly was their role in all of this?
Well, Ambrosius Rhodinus in particular had a keen interest in demonology.
Oh.
His knowledge of this dark subject, combined with his interactions with the accused,
Okay.
particularly the young girls, raises unsettling questions about the role of manipulation and external influence in shaping their testimonies.
Yeah, it's almost as if the lines between genuine belief and calculated manipulation become blurred in this context.
Exactly. Were the Rhodinuses influencing the girls
Right.
with their knowledge of demonic lore, or
Yeah.
were they simply tapping into existing fears and anxieties?
Exploiting the situation for their own purposes.
Right.
It's a question that highlights the complexities and ambiguities inherent in these trials.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a chilling example of how, even within a system as flawed as the witch trials, personal beliefs and agendas could sway the course of events.
Yeah.
But amidst all this darkness,
Right.
there's a glimmer of hope.
Oh, okay.
The 6 young girls accused in this period
Yeah.
were ultimately acquitted,
Wow.
deemed too young to be held responsible.
That's a relief to hear.
Yeah.
At least some semblance of reason prevailed in their cases.
Mm.
But it still leaves us with a lot to unpack about how these trials unfolded.
Right.
You mentioned earlier that the Sami people
Yeah,
were among the first to be accused.
they were.
Can you tell us more about
Sure.
the cultural clash that might have fueled this?
Of course. The Sami, as I mentioned, had their own unique traditions and spiritual practices, many of which revolved around their connection to nature.
Okay.
They had healers known as Noaidi, who used herbs, rituals, and sometimes even drums
Wow.
to interact with the spirit world.
So to the Norwegians unfamiliar with these practices,
Right.
it was easy to misinterpret them as something sinister,
Exactly.
something aligned with witchcraft.
Yeah, their very way of life, their beliefs,
Right.
became twisted into evidence against them.
It's just awful.
It is. And this was further exacerbated by
Yeah.
this prevailing belief at the time
Okay.
that the North,
Mhm.
particularly the northern regions of Norway,
Right.
was a gateway to hell.
Oh, wow.
This idea wasn't unique to Norway.
Okay.
It was widespread throughout Europe.
I can see how that would play into the fear surrounding the Sami.
Yeah,
If the North was seen as this haven for the devil,
right.
then the people who live there,
Mm-hmm.
those with different customs and beliefs,
Yeah,
could easily become scapegoats for any misfortune.
precisely.
Yeah.
The harsh climate, the unforgiving landscape, the swirling storms,
Yeah.
all of these natural elements
Right.
were seen as manifestations of evil,
Wow.
further reinforcing this notion that Vardø was a place where darkness thrived.
Oh, God.
And within this narrative,
Mm-hmm.
a particular mountain Dolmen.
Dolmen.
Yeah.
What's the story behind this mountain?
Well, Dolmen was believed to house a tunnel
Wow.
leading straight to hell.
Oh, my God.
A source of demons and evil spirits that would spread across Europe.
It's crazy.
Imagine, if you will, this isolated community clinging to the edge of the world
Right.
with this looming mountain that they believe is an entrance to the underworld.
Right?
It's not hard to see how this belief,
Yeah.
combined with the tragic loss of life at sea,
Right.
created a climate of paranoia and suspicion,
Oh, yeah.
where any misfortune could be attributed to witchcraft.
Definitely. It paints a very vivid picture of the fears and anxieties
It does.
that must have gripped this community.
Yeah.
And as we've seen, these fears weren't just directed at the Sami.
Right.
They also targeted Norwegian women.
They did.
And as we discussed earlier, this shift reflected broader social anxieties about female power and autonomy.
You're absolutely right. While initially the trials targeted both men and women,
Right.
with a strong focus on the Sami.
Yeah.
The later accusations centered primarily on Norwegian women,
Okay.
and the accusations often focused on women who were healers,
Right.
midwives,
Yeah.
or simply strong-willed individuals who challenged the status quo.
Wow.
Their knowledge and independence were perceived as threats, readily twisted into evidence of witchcraft.
It's heartbreaking to think that these women,
It is.
who likely held respected positions within their communities,
Right.
were suddenly demonized and persecuted based on unfounded fears and prejudices.
And it's a pattern
Right.
that we see repeated throughout history, sadly.
Yeah.
When societies face uncertainty, when fear takes hold,
Right.
those who are different, those who don't conform, often become scapegoats, in the case of Vardø. These fears were amplified by the belief in the North
Right.
as a gateway to hell,
Right.
a belief that wasn't just held by the local community,
Right.
but was prevalent throughout Europe.
So Vardø became a focal point
Yes.
for these anxieties about the devil, about the unknown, about the forces of darkness.
In a way, Vardø became a microcosm of the broader anxieties that gripped Europe at the time. It was a place where fear and superstition reigned,
Right.
where accusations could easily spiral out of control,
Yeah.
and where the consequences of these accusations were devastating.
It's just awful.
Lives were lost, families were torn apart,
Right.
a community was forever scarred
Right.
by the legacy of these trials.
It's a sobering reminder of the destructive power of fear and ignorance.
It is.
But thankfully, history doesn't end there.
Right.
In 2011, Norway took a remarkable step toward acknowledging the injustice
Yeah.
of the Vardø witch trials
Right.
with the creation of the Stalneset Memorial.
Yes. This memorial, designed by Peter Zumthor and Louise Bourgeois,
Okay.
serves as a powerful reminder of the victims and the forces that led to their demise.
Right.
It's a space for reflection,
Yeah.
for remembrance, and for confronting the darkness of the past.
Can you tell us more about this memorial?
Sure.
What makes it so unique and powerful?
The memorial is situated on a desolate headland
Okay.
overlooking the Barents Sea,
Wow.
which adds a sense of stark beauty and isolation to the experience.
Yeah.
It consists of two main parts.
Okay.
First, you have the memory hall, a long corridor with 91 windows,
Wow.
each representing one of the people executed during the trials.
Okay.
Each window is illuminated,
Right.
casting this warm glow against the stark landscape, a symbol of the lives tragically cut short.
That imagery is incredibly powerful.
It is.
Each life, each individual story
Right.
is given its own space, its own light.
Yeah.
It's a testament to the individual lives lost
Is.
amidst this collective tragedy.
Exactly. And then in stark contrast
Mm-hmm.
to the serenity of the memory hall,
Okay.
you have Bourgeois' installation,
Okay.
the damned, the possessed, and the beloved.
Wow.
This piece is housed in a dark, smoky structure
Right.
shaped like a cone. At its center is a burning chair,
Oh, wow.
reflected infinitely in surrounding mirrors.
I can only imagine how impactful that must be.
It is.
The burning chair.
Right.
A symbol of torture and persecution reflected endlessly,
Right.
multiplying the pain and suffering
Yeah.
inflicted upon those accused of witchcraft.
Yes, it's a visceral reminder
Wow.
of the brutality of these trials.
Right.
A powerful counterpoint to the more contemplative space of the memory hall.
The Stalneset Memorial seems to embody both the tragedy
It does.
and the need for remembrance, acknowledging the darkness,
Yeah.
while also offering a space for reflection and healing.
Precisely, it serves as a beacon of hope.
Right.
A reminder that even in the face of unspeakable cruelty, humanity can choose to remember to learn
Yeah.
and to strive for justice.
So we've journeyed back in time to explore the darkness
Yeah.
of the Vardø witch trials.
Right.
And we've seen how fear, ignorance, and prejudice
Right.
can lead to unimaginable cruelty.
Can.
But we've also witnessed
Yeah.
the power of remembrance, the importance of confronting the past,
Right.
and the possibility of healing and growth.
And that brings us to a crucial question.
Okay.
What does this all mean for us,
Yeah.
the listeners,
Right.
centuries removed from these events? Why should we care about the Vardø witch trials?
That's a great question. And I think one that lies at the heart of why we explore history.
I agree.
The Vardø trials, while rooted in a specific time and place,
Right.
hold timeless lessons about the dangers of fear,
Yeah.
prejudice, and the abuse of power.
They remind us
Right.
that even the most seemingly rational societies are susceptible to mass hysteria.
Oh, yeah.
And that individual beliefs, however unfounded,
Right.
can have devastating consequences.
It's a cautionary tale,
It is.
urging us to critically examine our own beliefs, to challenge assumptions,
Right.
and to resist the temptation to scapegoat or demonize others.
Yeah, especially when fear and uncertainty take hold. It's easy to fall back on old prejudices and
Right.
look for someone to blame.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And
Right.
in today's world, with the rapid spread of information and misinformation online,
Right.
we need to be more vigilant than ever.
Yeah.
The Vardø witch trials, while centuries old, hold a stark warning for us
Yeah.
about the dangers of unchecked accusations and the ease with which fear can be manipulated and exploited. It makes you think about how quickly things can spiral out of control,
It does.
even in societies that consider themselves enlightened and progressive. We might not be conducting witch trials anymore,
Right.
but the underlying dynamics of fear, prejudice, and the abuse of power
Yeah.
are still very much present.
Precisely, the Vardø witch trials stand as a chilling reminder that the pursuit of justice
Right.
can easily be corrupted by fear,
Right.
ignorance, and prejudice.
Yeah.
They call upon us to be vigilant, to question authority,
Right.
and to advocate for those who are marginalized and silenced.
It's a powerful message.
It is.
So as we conclude our deep dive into this dark chapter,
Yeah.
what's the one key takeaway
Okay.
you hope listeners will ponder?
What can we learn from Vardø
Right.
that can help us navigate the complexities of our own time?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking about.
I think what's most important is the understanding that the Vardø witch trials were not simply an isolated event,
Okay.
a quirk of history,
Right.
confined to a remote village in Norway. They represent a much larger phenomenon,
Right.
a pattern of human behavior
Okay.
that has repeated itself throughout history and continues to manifest in various forms today.
Right.
The names and locations may change,
Yeah.
but the underlying dynamics of fear, prejudice, and the abuse of power remain strikingly similar.
It's a sobering thought,
It is.
but also a call to action.
Right.
We can't change the past, but we can learn from it
We can.
by understanding the forces
Yeah.
that led to the Vardø trials.
Right.
We can better equip ourselves to recognize and challenge similar injustices in our own time,
Yes.
whether it's speaking out against discrimination, advocating for fair treatment,
Right.
or simply questioning the narratives that fuel fear and division.
Exactly. The legacy of Vardø is not just about remembrance. It's about responsibility. It's about recognizing the patterns of history
Right.
and choosing to break the cycle.
Wow.
It's about fostering a society rooted in empathy,
Right.
critical thinking, and a commitment to justice for all.
And on that note, we leave you with this final thought.
Okay.
How can we as individuals and as a society ensure that history doesn't repeat itself?
Right.
What steps can we take,
Yeah.
both in our personal lives and within our communities, to create a world where accusations are met with reason, where differences are embraced rather than feared,
Right.
and where justice prevails over ignorance and prejudice?
The answers may not be easy,
Right.
but the questions are essential.
Right.
The Vardø witch trials serve as a stark reminder that the fight for a just and equitable world is an ongoing one.
Yeah.
A fight that demands our constant attention and unwavering commitment.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the Vardø witch trials.
Of course.
We hope it's given you much to consider. Until next time, stay curious,
Yeah.
stay informed, and stay engaged.